Hello, everybody, and welcome back to WatchTime Live. I'm Minda Larson, the event director for WatchTime. I am coming to you from New York City, and we're really excited to have Nick and Giles English today, calling in from the UK, the founders of Bremont. So you are in for a treat today. Our editor-in-chief, Ruegger, is calling in from Switzerland, so we are truly a global community today. And I just want to remind you that you can submit your questions directly to Nick and Giles through the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. We ask that you don't do it through the chat because it gets a little confusing for us. And then we'd love for you to ask your question live on video towards the end of this presentation. Thanks so much for joining us. Please put in the chat where you're calling in from today. And make sure that you select all attendees and panelists when you write it in the chat. So without further ado, here is Ruegger.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be back for something that I think is going to be extremely exciting. Bremont was founded almost 20 years ago by two brothers, which what I think has to be undoubtedly one of the coolest names in the whole watch industry, Nick and Giles English. Their watches are clearly inspired by their shared love and passion for aviation, especially of flying historic aircraft and classic cars, but I think that's for a different time. But more importantly, they both are fully committed to bringing industrial scale mechanical watchmaking back to British shores. Step one was the Bremont workshop in Henley-on-Thames. Step two is the new Manufacturing and Technology Center, also known as the Wing, which will house machining, watch assembly, after sales, among others. Nick, Giles, welcome to WatchTime Live. I am so happy to have both of you today here with us. And I am very excited because I think I know the reason why you're calling it from two different locations.
We are, Roger, and so pleased to be here. So it's a lovely sunny day in Henley-on-Thames, and it's obviously always sunny in England, never rains. But this is the new Wing. This is our facility that will be opening in hopefully December, a bit delayed with all the COVID and everything. But I thought, why not give you all a little glimpse of the whole facility? So come this way, I'll give you a tour. So where Nick is, he is about 10 minutes from here, the other side of Henley. And that facility will be completely closing down. And what we wanted was a facility where we could get everything under one roof, a state-of-the-art assembly facility for watches, but also bring all of our machining under one roof and enable us to grow. And it's taken us probably 3 to 4 years to get to this point. And it's incredibly exciting. And our whole remit was, when we started, to bring British watchmaking back. And each year we do a little bit more. It's a long, long journey. And we're very patient. Let me just put on this very sexy hat in here. So welcome to the Wing. This is the reception. As I said, it'll be finished in December time. And I want to introduce you to Michael Bellamy, our head technology. Michael, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. I just thought for everyone out there to really understand what goes into building a facility, because obviously Nick and I had the plans and we drew it out. You came along and completely changed everything, didn't you?
Well, it's about the flexibility of the spaces that you're going to use. That was one of the key features for this. The different environments, if it's a clean environment, if it's a dirty environment, in logistics, customer service, they all need their certain requirements, but we have to be flexible. We have to be able to say, okay, this area needs to expand, so we can move this wall, we can change this service. So we put in the facilities that you can actually move things around easily within any of those environments.
And this isn't the first time you've done anything like this, is it?
This is we've been doing this all over the world. So I've been working for Audemars Piguet for the Richemont Group. So I've installed the facilities in the Middle East, Asia, Scandinavia, Europe. This is actually Project 54 for me. So we decided to get someone who actually knew what they were doing to join us, and that whole flow. I mean, for example, this is one of our watch assembly rooms behind. We have the full airflow facility, don't we? All the gadgets. So how do you design, what key components that make a good facility? Well, you start with what operation and what tasks you need to do in that space. And you actually start with the furniture, how everybody's going to sit, what the flow is, where the interactions are. Then you can group the particular operations together, and then you can design the environment that they need, what facilities and what services are need to go into those environments.
And we have the viewing gallery here, because I always think that, and people say, well, why does it cost that much to build a watch? And until you actually come and see a watch being built and see the effort that goes into it, you never quite understand that, do you?
You don't. I mean, it's not populated at the moment, but when you start to see all the toys and gadgets that go in there, it's yeah, it can be quite extensive. Yeah.
And we're looking at engineering and design sort of techniques, aren't we,
Exactly.
to improve?
And that's one thing for a building of this length. You need it to function for at least 10 years, and you don't know what that technology is going to be in 10 years' time. You've got to plan for the unexpected. So flexibility is key.
And obviously all our amazing watchmakers have come on board. We don't just put an ad in the paper and we get watchmakers who've joined us as we would do in Switzerland. It's a lot more challenging.
It's a lot more challenging. You have to have a certain level of ability, and then of course you need to be trained on our calibers as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
And our Bremont training scheme has produced some great watchmakers.
We have a brand new training facility added as well. We've got some great watchmakers, but of course we're in conjunction with WatchTime schools, and then we build on that initial base qualification to be specific for our brand. Yeah.
It's I always say running a watch company, it's incredibly difficult because we're an engineering company, aren't we? But you also have to be good at marketing. We own our own stores, retail. You have to do it globally. It's incredibly complex business, isn't it?
It is, and you've got to get all of these cohorts in one place. So the synergy is there then, the communication is there. I can talk to manufacturing straight away. You can be with customer service. One of the key things when we're designing stuff is to involve the customer service, because you've got to be able to service this product reliably for 40 years worth of service. So it's all of these people interacting together to coming up with a great product.
It's a cool thing. Well, let's go and see the rest of the facility. But thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I'll let you get back to sorting it all out. Another key thing with watchmaking is the light. You want the perfect light, the consistent throughout the day, so no direct sunlight that's going to change. This is part of the admin wing, as we call it. And for Nick and I, it was essential that you could come in when you visit us, and also operationally as a business, to have where we do all our machining very close to where we do all our watch assembly. And it very rarely does it actually happen. Even in many Swiss watch companies, you may have lots of suppliers, you outsource components, you specialize in certain, it may be assembly or it may be cases or movement parts. Very rarely do you do it all together. We've been working on our British movement for many, many years. And this was a core part to be able to manufacture a number of those components here as well. As you can see, this is where we do all our machining. Sorry, there's noises there. We are actually building, you can see. If you look around, these are big CNC machines. It is amazing. Some of you want a very accurate component. We're machining to about 5 microns. Human hair is about 50, 60 microns. And we've got new machines coming in here as well. So these were all operating at another site about 10 minutes from here. They've just been moved in. So effectively the building has been finished around it. And hopefully in the next probably week, they'll be up operational and running so we can start machining again. That downtime has been a tricky period for us. But that's by the new year, both the whole facility should be up and running. But no, I think thank you for your support and tuning in to listen to me. But I'm going to pass you to my brother, who hopefully will make some sense if you listen to him. But he is about 10 minutes from here at our sawmill facility. So I'll pass you over to Nick.
Thank you so much, Giles. This was truly amazing. And I hate to say it, I actually start liking that whole Zoom thing because we wouldn't have been able to see that in a different format. So thank you so much for doing that. Nick, what do the Brits better than the Swiss?
What do the Brits do better than the Swiss? I want to mute.
Yeah, perfect.
So and also there's an incredible history of British watchmaking, which is wonderful, and it has been going for many decades. I mean, if you turn to the last century, we probably made half the world's watches and pocket watches and clocks and things. So there is this history here. What we do have, noodles and what we do very well is producing innovative product, beautifully engineered, but stuff that lasts. I think that's what the Brits are very well known for. If you look at the industries that flourish in the UK, you've got Formula One, you have got aerospace, things like Rolls-Royce, you have Martin Baker as well. You have this incredible car industry going on as well, with the Rolls-Royce and McLarens of this world. There is a lot of innovation. But what we did do, we managed to lose a lot of it in watchmaking, obviously during 2 world wars. And so Bremont, some of our ambition very much is to bring even a small part of it back to the UK over the coming years, really.
And you just mentioned a truly iconic British brand, Rolls-Royce. You have just teamed up with them, not the car brand, but the aviation section of Rolls-Royce, to become the official timing partner for its all-electric speed record attempt. Can you tell us a bit more about this project?
Yeah, Roger, it's a lovely story. I mean, Giles and I have known a number of the people at Rolls-Royce through our aviation background for a number of years. And obviously, if you went back 20 years and you said, okay, what company would you love to work with? One of them would have to be Rolls-Royce Aerospace, just for what they represent. And over the years, if you look at the different record attempts they've been involved with, the engines they've manufactured, whether it's the Schneider Trophy, whether it's thrust, whether it's putting the engine in the Merlin, so the Merlin engine and the Spitfire during the Second World War, there is an amazing history there. So they came to us a while back and said, look, we're the future of aviation is actually looking more like electric, funny enough, or certainly part of it. And if you look at these drones that are flying around now, it's not going to be long before they're taking passengers around with them. We also, the aviation is going to go, probably hybrid, where you have jet with electric. And one of the things they want to do is beat the current speed record for electric flight. So we've been heavily involved with that. And actually, I think I've got a tiny little video which will show you a little bit about what we're involved with. Hopefully it'll work.
Well, we did manage to get a live feed from 4 different locations. So at some point we have to expect a small hiccup with technology.
But what's also lovely about this project is not only are we sort of involved with the timing, obviously, but it's also, we're building parts, some of the escape technology for the hatch, for the aircraft, some of the display inside the aircraft itself, the stopwatches and the original mechanical clocks are all, made by us. And so it's been great fun, really good fun project to be involved with.
But you're not going to build quartz movements now.
No, do you know, Giles and I have always been all things mechanical. It really has, ever since we're sort of started in life, we're sort of stuck in a workshop with our father, making and repairing things which were, maybe old motorbikes, old cars, old planes, which we still fly, but clocks and pocket watches were one of my father's passions. And I think when you have that love of all things mechanical, it's very hard to move away from that. I see the benefits of technology for sure, and I'm sure there's some interesting fusions which will happen with time. But for now, certainly we're very passionate about making mechanical watches and making them in this country, really.
We do have the video we can show now, Nick.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go for it, see if it works.
Well, I certainly find it very fascinating that you're starting to use your in-house production capabilities to produce something that goes beyond watchmaking. And I mean, this is truly, I'm going to be following that because I mean, as you said before, I really think electric flight is something where the whole industry is heading. What is interesting to me, you have ventured into quite some partnerships in those almost 20 years that you've been active, and you've mentioned that you're also producing parts for this Rolls-Royce plane. What do you learn as a manufacturer from working for different industry? What moved me quite a bit in the beginning of the year is when you, for example, reached out to the government and offered to produce parts for ventilators. What do you get in return as knowledge out of these partnerships?
I think the partnerships, they tend to be all very much organic when they do arrive. And what you at the end of the day, what you realize is you're all involved in precision engineering. You're machining metal. Now there is another couple of levels on top. Often when you get to watchmaking, a lot of it's about not only machining a bit of metal, but also the way it finishes. Obviously, tolerances are incredibly small. But what we have realized is, certainly not for every areas, but certain areas within our business, we have been able to pull people from, it might be aerospace, it might be, Formula One, it might be from the arms industry. And there is certainly a very similar mindset. And that's the same when you're working with partners. And someone like Rolls-Royce, they have, we have some machines in this country which very few other companies have, but Rolls-Royce may have those. And a lot of them about finishing their grinding machines, their particular machines which are fairly unique to I suppose, precision. There's a turbo blade behind me, here beside me, precision engineering. So you are talking the same language, which is lovely.
Speaking of language and more into design language, when you announced your partnership with the Ministry of Defense, that resulted in a new range of watches that had a slightly different design to what we were used to seeing from Bremont, with the middle case portion that was typical. So especially in this partnership, how did the requirements of the Ministry of Defense influence your design process and ultimately the result of watches that we get to see?
Yeah, well, Roger, I think for us, the military's been a part of the business which we've been involved with for quite some years. It's probably about a third, 25% of our business is military, and it's doing hundreds of different sort of squadrons around the world. And it happened, again, very, very organically. And from having done a number of these, it might be land-based, sea or air-based squadrons, the military, Her Majesty's Armed Forces came to us a few years ago and said, look, we want to control our IP more, we want to understand what's going on. And would you like to produce this range of watches with us, which we can then, I suppose, control some of their intellectual property, because they're very, very proud of it. The military goes back hundreds of years in the UK. And it comes back to interesting times, for example, during the Second World War, where the British military put out a tender to make a number of British military watches. And they were, fairly simple design, clear. They had to have decent lume. They had to be waterproof. They had to be fairly shock resistant. And they had this set design with the sub-dial at sort of 6 o'clock. And these became, I think they went out to 12 different manufacturers in the end because they needed that many watches. And of course, those have become the dirty dozen, which are great watches to start collecting. If you're collecting, it's a really lovely thing to do. And so when it came to designing this sort of contemporary version of a military watch, we based it around that original dirty dozen British military design. So it's a very contemporary version of that. But it's been a lot of fun working with them, and they were immensely involved, which is great. They still are, because we're still releasing more models with them.
We're We're already getting a ton of questions, so we have to look with Minda how to integrate that maybe
So
earlier.
I'm going to go ahead and put a few questions out there. One is, what is the number of watches you produce each year?
So we produce around 10,000.
Okay, great. Another question, any new releases in the pipeline?
So new releases, there are quite a few coming up actually, but if I tell you, I'd have to kill you. There's actually one, there's one Tuesday, which is, has very much a sort of military focus to it. So you must, very relevant to the conversation we've just had. And then there's another very exciting one a bit later in the year. So there are a couple.
Great. We do have a guest. I don't know your first name, but it's R. Guimeres. We can hear you. If you could go ahead and ask your question live, please. And tell us where you're calling from.
Hi, I'm calling from Arlington, Virginia. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I met you guys here in Maryland. Enjoy my Spruce Goose watch. Question that I have is the family of movements that you're going to release. Is it going to be basically one movement, or is it going to be several movements with complications, or one movement with complications? And then second question, if I can put that one in, are you going to look into new materials for the cases, like ceramics, for example? Thanks. And congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, Giles, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, the whole idea, we've been working on a movement, and it's been no secret for the last probably 4 years now. And that was never going to be one movement. It's a series of that we could change. So we wanted a base that we've gone through all the effort, but it doesn't just produce one movement. It will keep us going for many years with all different variations of that. We're not a brand to go and do tourbillons as a sort of standard or any of those sorts of complications, but really good GMTs. We don't do a movement's sake for a movement's sake. I mean, there has to be a reason why we're doing that. And we've come up, I mean, the H4 you've got is the most stunning watch. It's the stunning movement. Worked with Le Jeu Perret on that, utterly stunning. But why are we doing this, and can it be done in the price point? And definitely watch this space over the next 2 years. There's some really interesting stuff coming out, but it's so time consuming to get it right. And I was reading some blogs the other day of people saying, oh, in this modern age, can you just 3D print all this stuff? I mean, you should see the thick wodge of designs just from one movement. If you're going from complete ground up build, how complicated that is, and it has to work. And that's also, you need to be able to build it. You need, the CNC machines I showed you in there, that's great, but we will have to have a whole new set of machines for this particular movement. So it's the whole investment cycle, and it has to work into the position of where your business is. This is what Nick and I set out to do. This is the fun part of the whole business, and it's definitely the future. So yeah, I would say this is sort of, be patient, but it's looking good.
And I might add, I mean, we have to remind ourselves that this is an independent watch company. So it's always the difficulty that from a collector's point of view, we're always first in demanding in-house movements, but quite often we as the consumers tend to forget that this is a huge investment. And at the same time, that's where Nick and Giles really need to balance how fast are you developing the company, which is amazing to see how far these two and their teammates have gone in not even 2 decades. I mean, it really is impressive to see Giles standing in front of the wing there.
Well, thank you, Roger.
Coming back to what's happening at Bremont right now, something that that was before the lockdown. I mean, last year you sponsored Nims Purja. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, a Gurkha mountaineer and a British military veteran in his incredible quest to summit the world's 14 tallest mountains in less than 7 months. I mean, it's just insane. I do know this resulted in Bremont's first ever timepiece with bronze in its case, and it also ties into the questions we had before with working with different case materials. Can you perhaps tell us a bit more about the project? Because we obviously couldn't go there. There was like 14 summits. I mean, 12, okay, but 14, no way.
Do you want to answer this one? No, of course. So Nims, incredible individual. We got to know him through the military work we're doing, actually, and very understated guy. No sort of razzmatazz, but we went out for lunch with him, and he said, "Actually, listen, I've got this challenge I want to do. I'm coming out of the British Special Forces, and I want to go and climb the 14 8,000 meter peaks in the world that break the record." And the record stood at just under 8 years, and he wanted to do it in sort of 7 months. And Giles and I sat there, and funnily enough, we believed him. We believed it was possible because of what his other compatriots were telling us about him. And this chap is completely unique, just incredibly headstrong, but also physically very, very able, and just incredible at these high altitudes. And it was one of these projects which was, very, very much underfunded at the beginning. He had left the military and literally told his wife, "I want to go off and climb these mountains." So there was no real planning. If he'd left it an extra year or two, I'm sure it'd have been much easier. But off he went, and we supported him in his quest. And it was an incredible adventure. And he broke several world records in the process. He saved several people's lives. I think he's one of the few, if only, people to have done solo mountain rescues above 8,000 meters, dragging people off the mountain. And there's quite a few people alive today because of him. And so it read like a sort of thriller, him doing these mountains back to back. And then the last one, he would have done it a chunk quicker, hadn't been for the last one, which was in China, and he had to wait for quite a few weeks for the visa. But he climbed K2 in blizzard. So it is just quite phenomenal. And I think the whole mountaineering fraternity, high altitude mountaineering fraternity, really got behind it. Do we have a video? I think we might even have a video which just shows you a little bit about the project itself. It was a great thing to be involved with.
Please do.
No one else we knew that could actually do this, and the chat in the community about this amazing individual. I think what Nims has shown is that really anything is possible.
There are not very many people on Earth who have stood on the summit of all 8,000 meter peaks, and Nims is one of them.
It's very, very humbling indeed to have summited those 14 8,000 meter peaks in record time. It's certainly something we're not going to see in our lifetime, and probably quite a few lifetimes to come. To take these watches of ours up to these extreme environments was testing in a way that you could never have achieved in the laboratory, and only seemed fit to try and produce a watch based on the back of this.
Bremont for rescuing project possible and being the leading sponsor. Thank you so much, guys. Without you, this wouldn't happen.
Yeah, what I love about those mechanical watches and our whole thing of working with explorers and venturers is we first started working with polar explorers Ben Saunders, who completed the longest unsupported walk. Is the fact that his first trip, he went out with a quartz watch, and within 5 days the battery died because of the cold. These guys are using the same technology as Scott, Shackleton, Anderson, all those greats used cogs and gears all those years ago. So it's using old technology, but in a modern world, and it's the best thing to be using.
Thank you for that. Before we might quickly talk about ambassadors, I think we're getting more questions, Minda.
Yes, Giles, attendees would like to know when the new facility will be formally opening.
It's a very good question. If Nick hurried up, we'd be formally opening far quicker. But we will be in by December. That's the plan, and then we'll probably have a formal launch probably by Easter next year. And what we want as many people to come and experience it as possible. So yeah, welcome you all to come and tour around. We'll be here, and I think I know a lot of you are professional collectors and really know your stuff, but the people who haven't seen a watch being built and the parts being machined, it's just a wonderful thing. So yeah, we're aiming for the sort of end of first quarter next year.
That sounds great. I hope we can, us Americans, I hope we can fly there by then.
Oh, so do I. So do I. And yeah, I'm missing America. Nick and I haven't been out to America for so long, and we love the place as well. And yeah, we're missing you all.
We're missing you too.
Same here. Which is why we quite often try to bring collectors to the watch brands, and I'm looking very much forward to visiting you guys there, because I do agree. You only get the full picture of what a brand stands for once you have seen how the watches are being produced and you have seen the people who actually make the watch. It's just every watch company, although most of them use the same machinery, there is a different spirit and there is something very special to all these brands. So once we're allowed to fly and travel again, I'll be there. I guarantee you.
I do have one question that just was texted to me from Russell, and he said, "What's it like being in business with your brother?"
I have to say I'm very lucky. I know I often tease Nick, but it's Nick's 50th birthday this week. So
wow,
he's now an old man. But it's been brilliant. And Nick and I do all the design of the watches. So by designing them, you have to agree on something. We don't outsource that. So it makes that design process. We've grown up, we've flown together, from year dot, and it's been a wonderful experience. Now it's stress, and we don't see enough of each other on a social level. It's all about work. But no, I'm very lucky to be working with Nick over these years.
And one collector just asked if we could if the WatchTime readers could perhaps visit your new facility on the next WatchTime tour, which would be wonderful.
Definitely. Consider it done. We'll put that invite out.
Great. I'll take you up on that. And Giles, we can always mute your brother if you want to say something that he cannot. I mean, we have full control. That brings me to a different question. I mean, what I do admire is that even though you're a family-run business, you decided from the very beginning that it wouldn't be your own name. Would you care to explain a little bit why you didn't go with your family name, like the English Brothers or something like that, and instead went with a proper brand name?
I could try and answer that question. So we when we started Bremont, this passion for watches was there, but we started back in 2002, and even back then, we knew, having talked about watchmaking at length with our father, that we didn't actually want to go and buy a brand. We never wanted to sort of take an old brand off the shelf. And there was some incredible, Mudge, Tompion, Harrison. There's some incredible British watchmakers, geniuses from the past, which I think we just didn't feel. I think it'd be a very hard thing to do, is take someone else's brand and do what they would have wanted to do with their brand. You know, it could have been sacrilege taking a Harrison brand and making a military watch. They may have not wanted that. So we very much wanted to do our own thing. So that was clear from day one. A last name or surname of English made you know, a watch brand called English very, very tricky. I think the irony would have been lost on many people, and trademarking the English watch company would have been tricky as well. So that really never came up. And so for the first 3 years of Bremont's development, we didn't actually have a name for all of the watch prototypes that literally had watch written on it, and it wasn't important to us until the stage when we felt actually we better start thinking about it now. And it came down to our father died at 49 years old, actually, which is quite sort of emotional thing for me, because I was, you know, this week 50, which is older than he was, which is a really strange thing. But he died when he was quite young in this plane accident with myself. And Giles and I, a couple of years after that accident, were flying down through France. And this is one trip that meant a huge amount to us. So we ended up having a precautionary landing. We basically ran out of fuel, and we landed in this field in France. And this very dear old guy, farmer, came out and helped us out, basically. And we stayed with him a few days, and his name was Antoine Bremont. And had our father lived for another 30 years, this guy was very much like our father, but an old version of him, into his mechanical objects and just full of passion for life, real zest for life. And so it was a bit of a homage to our father, but also to this wonderful farmer we met. So it became Bremont, and it sort of stuck from there, really.
I mean, to me, what the touching part of that story is that even though you might not have a 200-year history, you do have a history, and it's I think it's a very emotional and a very personal history, which at the same time you manage to disconnect from yourself and build a proper brand. And I think that's what makes Bremont, in my opinion, so different to some other brands that are also quite new on the scene. And I really admire that, especially looking back to, again, you started in 2002, or didn't you?
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
That's 18 years, and while others will be allowed to drive a car by now, you've just built a rather impressive building, which we can still see. So I think that really is a very unique way to have a story, and even though that story doesn't go back to the 1900s, one can clearly feel that there is the same substance. So
I think that's very kind, Roger. I think from our side, I think there is this history of British watchmaking. We wanted to use that, but really, life would have been so much easier if we didn't have to do any of this. And the easy route would have been just to outsource it all, and you'd make a lot more money. But we tried to be as integral as we can in building in the UK, and as much as we can bring back here. And our ambitions are for 30, 50, 100 years time on way we want to take Bremont, and to do that you have to do it properly. But it's painful, it's so hard, takes so much investment. And my wife always says, if you want to make money, Giles, you make making money look so damn difficult. And I think that's very true when it comes to Nick and myself. But it's, you see a watchmaker trained up from nothing, who never knew what a mechanical watch was, a technical engineer above him, quality control, machinist, all those elements that go into building watches and doing it on home shores. That's really what gives Nick and I the pleasure. And I have to say, we're all in this wonderful industry, aren't we? That the people going around the world who buy Bremont watches and other watch collectors are the most lovely people. And there are far worse industries to be in.
We're hearing from a lot of watchmakers on WatchTime Live, and we're actually getting and founders of brands, and there seems to be a similar theme. So we're getting a lot of behind the scenes information from the actual founders of the brands, and the chat, everyone is saying, you know, what a great story. It brought tears to my eyes. This is so fascinating. And one collector said, you guys didn't take it off the shelf name. You're taking the longer winding road, and you should be commended for that. So I know the collectors are really enjoying hearing this behind the scenes stories.
And I mean, I might get expelled from Switzerland at some point, but I really think it is extremely important. It's the same with chocolate. The Swiss has always been very good in claiming something as if it were their own exclusively. But as a matter of fact, the Japanese make amazing watches. The English make amazing watches. The French build amazing watches. At some point, the Italian made amazing watches. It's just, as you said at the beginning, the Brits pretty much dominated the watch industry, but at some point didn't manage to go the full industrial process as the Swiss, with the help of the Americans, by the way, managed to do.
No, that's so true. And you know, the so many of the design inventions came from British watchmakers, and you know, the world sets its time by Greenwich Mean Time. There's a reason for that. But there's no doubt we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the Swiss helping us out. And we have a lovely relationship with our Swiss friends who supply us components, work with us, help on designs, and it's taken years of cultivating those relationships. So there's no doubt we wouldn't be here without the Swiss as well.
Thank you. I'll make sure I'll pass it along so I can stay. Speaking of staying, with the pandemic going on, with the lockdown, et cetera, how do people currently experience your watches best? I know that you have the boutiques, but I, for instance, I couldn't go to London, I think as of today. How do we best enjoy and experience your products?
Well, it is difficult. Admittedly, we still have our own boutiques open, a number of those, and there's a lot of our retailers open. We're in several, a few hundred retailers around the world. A lot of those are still, working as normal, if not with the social distancing rules. We're doing a lot of online consultation, which is great, and so are the retailers. So if you are genuinely interested in chatting to someone who really knows their Bremont watches and seeing something up close, you can still do it. Like we're doing this call now, and that's become very successful. And obviously there's online as well, which is really helped everyone, I think, around the world in these times of troubles. But I mean, it's not easy. I think we're going through sort of possibly a second sort of mini lockdown period in many parts of the world. But I think book in a time. You can still come in and make sure that if you're unsure of having other people around you, can make sure you're in an environment which you feel safe. And a lot of other precautions being taken with sterilization, UV light, and all sort of stuff to make sure you can handle product. I mean, Giles, did you have any other views on that?
No, I think this is the online is a brilliant way. We've got a brilliant retail network around the world. So yeah, log on to our website and see where we're retailing, or come and see us. And when we're out of all of this, you get to come here and visit, and Nick and I will give you a proper tour as well.
And again, we will take you up on that. Any more questions from the audience? Because we have pretty much destroyed every run of show that we have set up previously. So I'm glad that we have a very active audience today. Any more questions that we could redirect directly to Giles or Nick, please ask them now. I do have one question for in between that. It's always difficult when a watch brand teams up with an ambassador. Either it's something that we as the end consumer somehow have to pay. At the same time, there is always a bit of risk of something going wrong. But I do see a much more clear pattern in how you guys choose brand ambassadors. And would you like to dive into that a little bit? What are you looking for if someone becomes an ambassador for Bremont?
Well, it's a. Do you want me to answer this or Nick? It's a very interesting one, the brand ambassador. And we wanted to work with these people doing amazing things, and if we could support Nims climb a mountain, or Ben Saunders, or work with Rolls-Royce, it's just effectively a brand ambassador type partnership. The challenge you've got, though, is without doubt, whether you like it or not, celebrity sells. Look at all the big watch brands. It's all an A-list celebrity, and that's all they're advertising. That, to us, doesn't feel natural as a brand, but we know it works in an industry. But ultimately, I think we've learned it's about working with people you genuinely like, people who really connect to you as a brand, and you share that ethos. You can both help each other out. So yeah, it's a very difficult choice, but celebrity does without doubt sell watches, and even if it's something that we all very much disagree with. Anything more to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, no, I think, but also it's as Giles and I get slightly older and wiser, of course, and more silver locks. You end up you wanting to work with people you like, actually, and understated achievement is something that we're very passionate about as a brand. These underdogs who go off and do the most amazing things, and it's not about having millions and millions of dollars of support. It's a bit like the Wright brothers doing all their flights all those years ago, and they had no money in the bicycle shop. They're the ones who did it. It wasn't the well-funded chaps, and we come across the most amazing people. We have these incredible evenings, sort of Bremont Venturers Club evenings all around the world, which might be in Hong Kong, it might be a boutique there, it might be in New York or in London, but you'll have an adventure in some form, and it might be Ian Callum, chief designer of Jaguar cars. It might be Jason Fox, who is ex-Special Forces, done some amazing record-breaking things. Or it might be Ben Saunders, as Giles talked about. But each one of these people are delightful, and you would actually, they've all become very good friends, not just friends of the brand, but friends because they're genuinely lovely people, but doing amazing things. I think that's something that Giles and I have a natural affinity for, I think.
Thank you for that insight. And I think we're heading over to Richard.
Yes, we have one more question. I don't think it's going to be a short answer, but we need to please keep it short so we can end with Richard's question. Richard, can you please let us, you're unmuted. Let us know where you're calling from too, please.
Absolutely. I'm calling from Los Angeles, California in the States. And I just had a question for either or both of the Englishes, and that is, what would you say distinguishes your brand from other pilot watch brands, such as IWC or even the older brands from actually from the same era, such as Stova and other similar pilot watch brands?
That's quite an interesting one. I think lovely to meet. I'll say a bit, and I'll let Giles say a bit as well. I think from our perspective, it's there's certainly a big DNA. I think that's the first difference. There's a huge aviation DNA in our business, in our watches. We grew up with a real passion for watches, but also a massive passion for aviation through our father. By the way, I am liking the Ben Saunders background there. It's almost sort of the snow and the peaks. No, so there is this incredible passion, and we've worked with some incredible aviation companies over the time. And actually, there's a forum, a conversation later tonight on WatchTime all about aviation watches. So please join there as well. But it's about working with, well, first of all, producing a watch which is beautifully engineered but very, very clear. When you're flying, you get to understand a little more about what you need in a watch, what you don't. For instrument flying, you might need a chronometer watch. Otherwise, you need a watch which is obviously very accurate. When we learned to fly, it was a map, a compass, and a watch, and that's how you navigated. So time has always played a big, big part. But also, you're doing 20 different things at once in the cockpit, and it's about looking down the watch, and legibility is key. And then combining that with some incredible organizations like Martin Baker, where we've genuinely come up with some proper proprietary technology which will go into that watch and make it robust, make it a watch that the military will want to use. And this is why I think, funnily enough, a lot of these pilots have moved away from courts, and they're wanting something which will be there for for many a year and passed down through the generations. But there are some, beautiful, aviation watch brands out there, and but I also think there's certainly a demand for watches to be made from people who really, really have as much passion for aviation as they do sort of watches. I mean, Giles, any views from your side?
Yeah, I know you're wanting to go on. Just finishing off the reason we always set out. It's not a model standing in front of an airplane doing his pose. Real pilots, as Nick said earlier, 25% of our business just making for military around the world. These pilots are wearing our watches. Go on to the Bremont military, see some of the squadrons we make for, and that's, you cut Bremont through. Aviation is such a strong part, and we always saw aviation watches. It's not a dressed watch, it's not a diving watch. It's that middle ground, a watch you can wear in the boardroom or at Mount Everest or in your airplane, and that's the core DNA of what Bremont's been about.
Excellent. Can I just ask one more very quick question? Is the new facility also in Henley upon Thames? Or
yeah, so I'm standing where Nick is sitting. He's about a mile the other side of Henley on Thames, and I'm about a mile this side of Henley on Thames. So yes, we're both in Henley on Thames, and I actually personally wish I was in LA at the moment. That'd be a lot more fun, I think.
At least I've been to your town also, at least to see Friar Park and everything. So that was fun.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm looking forward to seeing the new facility. Sorry.
Great.
Well, I hope, Giles, especially you were standing for almost an hour outside. I really hope it wasn't too cold.
No, very warm.
Get indoors.
It's always hot in Henley.
I would add, what differentiates you from other brands is also what's behind you, the made in the UK. And I mean, that goes for be it cars, be it airplanes. This also counts from a consumer perspective. Occasionally, you want to have something that's made in England, or something that's made in Germany, or something that is made in Switzerland. I think in your case, this is going to be even more exciting in the future. I cannot thank you enough for what you two guys have done today. I think this is one of the few moments where I actually prefer being stuck at home, because we couldn't have done this in let's say more normal times. So this was really a highlight for me, and I can't thank you enough. So Nick, Giles, thank you so much, and best regards from Switzerland.
Roger and the team, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nick and Giles.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Nick and Giles, so much. And we'll see everybody in about 6 minutes with G-Shock and Accutron at High Tech. We really appreciate the English brothers sharing their time with us. Thank you guys, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.